Today's podcast is brought to you by Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. Accidents happen. Without the right coverage from the right insurance company, damage to your automobile can be a real financial hit. That's why Kentuckians appreciate the competitive rates and personal service they get from Kentucky Farm Bureau Insurance. When the unexpected happens, count on us to help you get back on the road. To request a free quote, find your local KFB insurance agent at mykfbagent.com. Kentucky Farm Bureau, big on commitment. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm good. We're going to try our hardest to not talk sports and talk policy with our next guest today.
Yeah, he's a sports nut. If you know him well, he'll tell you everything you need to know about UK basketball, maybe more than any other sport. So, but fun chat with Kyle today.
Yeah, he's going to be a really good one. So we're really excited. And without further ado, I'm Renee Carrico.
And I'm Matt Hilton.
And this is Between the Rows. All right. Well, hey, everybody. How's it going?
Doing good.
Going well.
All right. We are we're on our second one of the day, Matt. We are rocking and rolling. This one's going to be easier. You guys have two different names. Last time we had a Matt and a Matt, so he became Hilton for an hour.
Yeah, there you go.
I was Hilton for now. Well, Kyle calls me Hilton mostly, I think.
Most of the time. I think that goes back to the sports background, just using that last name.
Well, we're excited to have you, Kyle. We'll kick this thing off. Why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, kind of where you're from, and how you got to Farm Bureau.
Yeah, thanks, Renee. So, yeah, Kyle Kelly grew up in Owen County on a farm, kind of your traditional small town, rural Kentucky farm. We had cattle, hay, tobacco. It was a couple 100-acre farm, but, tobacco really was the base, just like it was on most farms throughout rural Kentucky. So I grew up working in tobacco, showing cattle, kind of all your traditional, just fun ag kid stuff, and got to be president of FFA there in Owen County, and that's really – through FFA is really where I kind of found a UK College of Ag and participating in those programs through 4-H and FFA, and decided that's where I wanted to go, Matt. So I did go tour Western. I knew you were a hilltopper. So loved the tops. But ultimately, Renee went to UK College of Ag, majored in community leadership development and agriculture economics, and was able to intern at Kentucky Farm Bureau back in 2012, I believe, and just loved it. Got to do organization, operation, and communication. So like the one division I wasn't in was public affairs, which now I get to be the director of. But I did get to work closely with Jeff Harper at the time that summer. So really got to see kind of all the aspects of Kentucky Farm Bureau, and knew right then that this is kind of was the dream job for anybody that was in ag policy or ag communications. So after college, went and worked a few campaigns for governor, for ag commissioner. I went to work at the Department of Agriculture, lobbied for the Kentucky Retail Federation. And under that arm was the Ag Business Association, Propane Gas Association, Restaurant Association, all these associations that were relying upon agriculture and relying upon farmers. You don't have restaurants if you don't have food. And it was the farmers that grew it. So I always had a passion, obviously, for the agriculture side. And I was fortunate enough to get to come to Kentucky Farm Bureau in 2018 and pursue that dream of working for the voice of agriculture. So I always seen Farm Bureau as the gold standard when it comes to kind of lobbying and advocacy efforts. So this was always kind of the dream. So glad to be here.
So how'd you start? What was the first role you got here, and kind of talking about that experience, and you've got a pretty neat role now, and get to really do some major, help make major change in Kentucky.
Yeah. So the first role here was Director of Local Affairs. Had the opportunity to come in and really work kind of local issues at the county level as well as the state of Kentucky. I get to lobby the General Assembly, which is what I was doing in previous roles before I got to Farm Bureau, was just kind of strictly Kentucky General Assembly. So got to continue to do that, but really got to kind of dive into the local issues, county judges, magistrates, city commissions, different things that were impacting members at the local level. Was able to do that up through kind of COVID, and there were some transitions after COVID, and went over to the national affairs side and got to travel to D.C., which was a lot of fun. Obviously, a lot of what happens on a day-to-day on our farms is impacted through what happens in Washington and even on an international level. So that position really gave me the opportunity to look at agriculture from the Washington, D.C. side and the global trade side, things of that nature. And then ultimately to being the division director of public affairs and kind of getting to work all sides of it now. So
pretty cool.
Yeah, there's very few of us here that have the internship all the way to a director role, and there's three of us right now. So it's so funny, Weston, and you guys will meet him this month on the podcast. He was like, "Oh, what kind of job opportunities?" I was like, "Wow, there are three little like success stories of the internship got us here." But no, it is cool, and I did the same thing you did. I did all three divisions and not the one that I'm in now. So I did not work with commodities when I interned, but I think it's neat. I think the perspective you have going through so many different roles is really helpful, and gives a lot of credibility when you're working with the members on the county level. One part you didn't mention that I always think is very interesting too, though, is you were competing in Young Farmer events. You were an active member in your local county, correct?
Yeah, correct, Renee. Yeah, that was really, I guess, my kind of intro into Farm Bureau. I was kind of the stereotypical little kid that was carpet farming in the background. I guess my dad served on the Owen County Farm Bureau board, so I guess he saw it as like, here's an opportunity to give my son a free meal on a Monday night once a month. So I got to go with Dad to those, and we had a nice potluck the first Monday of the month back then. I think they actually still do the first Monday of the month. But yeah, so grew up going to these events, and then when I got to college, I got a Owen County scholarship. But to do that, they were kind of like, well, we want you competing in something. We're not just going to give you money. So anyway, so it was kind of like you need to go to Young Farmer Conference. And that was, I don't guess it was a prerequisite, but it was very heavily recommended. Mm-hmm. And I went and I loved it. Like the Young Farmer program is such a great program. I had a lot of fun, met a lot of people who are now they're members, but they're also like best friends. And it was through going to that and then participating in Outstanding Youth, which I did not win. Did not even get close to winning it. There was so much talent. So I got to do that as a kind of going into college. And then once I got into college and I knew that I liked the public affairs, the political science type programs, I thought the discussion meet was a great opportunity to participate in something else. So I got to do the discussion meet 2 years in a row, got runner-up both years, so never could win that thing. It's very difficult to win. But yeah, I did get to participate in that and ultimately became our Young Farmer chairman in Owen County and got to sit on the board and loved it. It was a great opportunity.
And you guys live in Owen County now, correct?
Still live in Owen County on the family farm, and we're still running cattle, doing hay, but actually lease the tobacco ground, which actually is very important to me, I guess. Like I just love, even though I'm not growing it, I love the fact that when I meet people from other state farm bureaus or even legislators, and they ask, what do you do on your farm? And, I tell them I lease the tobacco ground, but I still have that tobacco base on the family farm that really helped build multiple generations, was that tobacco base. So, it's not what it once was, I guess, but it is still 6 acre lease for a tobacco ground. So I love that.
Yeah, Matt, that's my husband's family. I mean, like Springfield, another one of those towns truly built on tobacco. I mean, like had the buying station right there, all those things. And so it's different. I never got to do that. And I know people that worked in tobacco say got to do that. It's a lot of work. But truly, I mean, there's just a stronghold in people that had tobacco growing up and it built their family, it built their homes. It's hard to let go. So I think it's cool you get to still have a piece of it, even if it's not truly yours, your tobacco, at least your ground doing it. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I love it too. I got asked just yesterday, somebody was like, I want to build this they wanted to build something using tobacco sticks. They're like, where can I buy some tobacco sticks? And I'm like, I probably have 50,000 of those sitting in my barn right now. So
I know a guy.
Yeah, I know a guy. What are you willing to pay?
Yeah.
but no, like we still do. It's like still have all the old tobacco sticks. I went to a Christmas tree farm actually yesterday on a farm tour with some legislators, and they're like, yeah, this is my wedding venue, my wedding barn here, and nice barn. When I walked in it, I look around, I'm like, this isn't a wedding barn. This is a tobacco barn that's now being used for a wedding barn. So it's like, yeah, maybe that tobacco isn't being grown on that farm anymore, but it was that tobacco infrastructure that has made a new path for that generation to help have a revenue source on that farm. So like tobacco and the tobacco infrastructure is still so important to these rural economies.
Mm-hmm. You talked about Farm Bureau being the gold standard, the place you kind of wanted to end up. Why is it the gold standard? What do you think that attracted you to that? What did you see? And you had opportunities, lots of places, nothing wrong with those places. But what was it about Farm Bureau that made you like, that's where I want to go be able to put my energy into and try to make a difference?
Yeah, so branding and marketing is important. And like, being big on commitment and being the voice of agriculture, I mean, just from seeing those things, you kind of, it instills in you that is the voice for agriculture. They are big on commitment to their members, whether it be through insurance or federation. It just fit, like you just kind of knew that. But then just from attending events, when I got involved in the political side of things, so not policy, but working on some of those campaigns I mentioned, I got to travel to all 120 counties. There's very few groups that have a footprint in all 120 counties. Kentucky Farm Bureau is one of those groups. So, I knew early on in my career of working on the political side of things, the impact that Farm Bureau had at the local level, not just on politics, but when you walked in and we would go to a local Little League field and there would be Kentucky Farm Bureau. Same deal when you walked into a cattle or hog, lamb, whatever show ring, right there on the side was Kentucky Farm Bureau and their local county. So I just knew from traveling, like, it was something, the branding piece kind of instilled that in me, but then I just learned firsthand seeing that, having the opportunity to go to all 120 counties and realizing that Kentucky Farm Bureau has boots on the ground in every county, and they're not just there. They are participating. They're making their county a better place. So I learned it firsthand in part, and I think that was the biggest thing for me to realize that, like, I'm seeing it. I don't have to be told it. I'm seeing it.
Cool. Yeah. You get to interact with people like you all over the country, right? And kind of how does, not to toot our horn, but how do we stack up? Do you think that we have a big voice here in Kentucky compared to maybe some other states?
Yeah. So I can say it because it's not me bragging. It's what we're told. Renee, I know you get to do the same thing. I know we all get to go. There's, every state has a Farm Bureau, but I love going to other Farm Bureau events and meeting my colleagues in other states and them just being like, wow, you all are doing, like, that is so cool. You all are doing that in Kentucky, whether it be this podcast, whether it be the Farm to Frankfurt that we do, or just when we provide a General Assembly update. They're like, how'd you all get that done? It's like, well, we have such a strong grassroots base that is active in the process. And so yeah, other states, we might not be the biggest from a raw number, but other states definitely look to us, again, as kind of that gold standard. And they tell us that. It's not, we're not going in there bragging. They're asking us questions and telling us how cool it is to see what we're doing.
Yeah, I was at Southern Region for commodity side last week, and I think y'all's is maybe closer to August, but for legislative. But it is it's remarkable when you give your state report, because every state will give a report. And so when Kentucky gives theirs, I feel like I'm barely glazing the surface and I'm just like, oh, what's the last 6 cool things we've been doing lately? And I try to just go over those, and they will come to you after and be like, I just don't understand how you guys can do this or that, or you've got a whole studio downstairs, you've got all these resources. I mean, they're just always super impressed. And so yeah, I'm like, Kyle, we really don't go asking for it. They tell us, and the coolest part is we've got so much member buy-in. That's where we're getting the idea. It's not like me and Kyle are thinking of them.
Right.
So it's really cool when they're like, oh, where did that even come from? We're like, oh, well, we had 5 members the last few years that have just been hounding us. So we finally dug in and look at this. Now we've got hundreds listening. So it is pretty cool to talk through when you're with your colleagues in other states. And they have awesome ideas too. There's other great farm bureaus. We stole Arkansas's idea on the website, and they immediately were like, you're making us look bad. Now we got to update ours. So we're jawing back and forth. It's fun. But you're exactly right. We are blessed here to have a lot of really cool opportunities. And it's a lot of hard work from a lot of membership and member leaders that have gotten us there for sure.
Yeah, I love seeing what other states are doing too. They all have their own unique ideas, and it's cool that we have that network of people we can pull from. And you brought up a good point mentioning it's the member buy-in. And I think one other thing I get to do that I didn't mention was being staff lead on Generation Bridge. That's that 36 to 49-year-old age group. It's a program that was started actually at the end of 2020. So, a pretty difficult time.
Everyone's favorite year.
Pretty difficult time to get a new program up and running. But that was something that's been talked about for many years. And then we were able, after our 100-year anniversary coming out of 2019, leadership put together the Vision 100 committee. And that was kind of the strategic planning committee that came up. And it was some folks from insurance, a lot of folks from membership. And ultimately, they decided that having a program for that age group was something that we really needed to prioritize. So it wasn't, just something that came up out of this office. Yeah, we've all been thinking it for a long time, but it was our membership that told us the next 100 years we have to prioritize programming for that age group to keep them involved and active and engaged in our organization. And from that came Generation Bridge, and now we're year 4 into it, and I bet we've probably had a half a dozen states, if not more, that have come to Kentucky to meet with us or to come to our leadership summit and try to implement their own program in their own states. And it's all different. It's not all called the same thing, but there's a lot of states now in the Midwest, the Southeast in particular, that now have a program for that age group.
And it's nice. Well, Matt, you'll understand this. We're competitive, of course. Like, we want to be the best in what we do. But is having that open door policy and so much collaboration with these other states. A lot of times we feel like we work with our southern states a lot. But we've recently, in my team, started really working with some of our guys right across the river, a lot of those I states. And it's incredible some of the things they've been doing that we didn't realize. And I think one of their leadership members are coming to Gen Bridge just off of one trip. So it's amazing what one little reach out. That is one thing all farm bureaus do have in common. We are very, very open and friendly to have some conversations. So that doesn't matter what part of the geography you're of in the country.
Yeah, and we don't hold back. I mean, I think all state farm bureaus are willing to share their ideas with one another, and we all grow together. So it is really cool that we get to do that and have that resource.
So you grew up on a farm in agriculture. Obviously, that gives you insight into your role every day. But what are some the lessons you learn on a farm? How much has that mattered? You have a work ethic. You're kind of a go kind of guy.
Yeah.
I mean, what is it? What do you think you'd learned growing up on a farm that maybe a kid that didn't grow up on a farm didn't learn necessarily?
Yeah, so no doubt, growing up on a farm, there's always something to do. So I also played sports, Matt. I know that your family's also very engaged. Renee, you too, in athletics. So, I think part of growing up on the farm and playing sports, like it builds that work ethic that you always have something to do. Whether you might not always like it, but it needs to be done. So just go do it. And whether, I think back to like this weekend, like weeding some finch rows. Like I didn't want to do that as a kid. I still don't want to do that today. But it's one of those things that kind of has to get done. And you just kind of learn that when something needs done, you go do it. You try to find people to help you do it. When you can, that's awesome. And when you can't, you still have to go get it done no matter how much you want or don't want to. So I think growing up on the farm really just instilled in me, even to this day, like if there's something that needs to get done, you just go do it. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that the other thing that, I don't farm full time, obviously. But I do know, like, I like the fact that I still have those farm roots, and Renee, you too, where when you get a phone call about an issue, you understand it. Like we work with USDA, I work with the FSA, not as often as full-time farmers do. I'm not trying to say that, but when I get a call, I'm familiar with that program, and I think that's it's some of that's from studying and just researching for this job, but others it's like I just grew up going to the USDA FSA office, and that was just what we did. We went and filled out our crop reports. We had H-2A workers when I was in high school, kind of right, I guess, as the program was really kind of expanding. So, I'm not an expert, I guess, in terms of from the farm side. I try to become an expert from the policy side, but they are things that I'm familiar with because I grew up kind of seeing it. So I think that, I think that's an advantage of growing up and living on the farm.
You bet, yeah.
I think it's huge. I mean, I tell people all the time I'm an expert in nothing, but I know enough to be dangerous. And I think that's more to get a conversation moving. And so when a farmer who is more engaged, who does do it full time, who sells 4 to 5 times more cattle than I do, if I can at least start the conversation because I did sell some calves last week, or I do watch the market because we're picking a day, they are going to talk more because they feel comfortable and they feel like I'm in their community. I'll learn so much more just letting them talk and hearing what they have to say. But I don't think that would have ever started if they wouldn't have truly understood that, I'm going to sell it. It might be a very small group, but I am a very baby piece in this industry. So I think that's 100% correct. I think people are more open because we still do kind of keep our roots in ag at home, even if we are literally full-time weekend farmers, because it has been a really hot one recently. And that is, but it's true. And it's funny, my husband laughs. There are sometimes it'll be maybe during session or during very critical points in the year, and I'll get a text from Kyle late at night. But it's one of that mentality of if it has to get done, it has to get done right now. And so we can get a text back and forth very quickly to where at 8 a.m. you're ready to talk to legislators the next morning. And I think that's a farm kid mentality. If the sun's out, we got to get it done. Whether you had practice at 4 or whether you want to eat supper, you got to go feed the calves first. So I think. I see that. I see that in kind of your work ethic here is if it's that peak time, if it's the right time, sometimes you just got to punch it through. So
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, when we're in session, it's there's days where they might finish up at 2, and there's days where they go to 11:59 because they can't go into that next day legally. But yeah, so there's it's a lot of fun though. Like I really do love it, and it is part of competition. Like you get that competitive drive too. That it's like you want to go get all this stuff done and. Win, who's going to pass the most bills or whatever. But
I was going to get into that. What's the excitement of this? This is I think this is a role that you have to be built to do in a way, and I think you have a lot of the qualities to go do that. To every day go there and just keep hounding that in a way, keep talking about an issue. What gets you excited about your daily work?
Yeah, so I mentioned at the beginning, like when I went to that first Young Farmer Conference and met a lot of folks, they've become my best friends. So like part of my excitement and my joy from doing what I do is like if we're able to get something done or get something defeated that would be bad or get something done that would be good, that is good, I know that I'm doing that for our membership, but also like those are a lot of these people are my very best friends. So, I want to see everyone succeed in the agriculture industry. But part of that is because I live it and breathe it and talk to these people every day, whether it's about a Farm Bureau issue or whether it's about, how my grandparents are doing, whatever it might be, knowing that you're helping not only your membership that you work for, but also people who are truly your friends. Like that, that means a lot to me. And then just like, just generally the competition, the competitive side. It's fun when you get in there and, they say the days go fast when you love what you do. And it is crazy when you're in session. It's kind of go all day, and then they gavel into the floor around 2 o'clock, 4 o'clock, kind of depending the day in the afternoon. And once they gavel on the floor as a lobbyist, you're not allowed to go to the floor. So then it's like sit back and watch them from the gallery or on TV, and it's like you look down, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. It's like, I hadn't even had breakfast yet. But it is like it's just fun. It's hard to explain because politics are becoming more polarizing. Mm-hmm. But we're very fortunate in Kentucky that a lot of the politics, it might not seem that way on TV, but in Kentucky in particular, like we still have a lot of rural roots, very pro-agricultural people. So they tend to agree with what we're saying, and that makes it fun too whenever they agree with you.
Mm-hmm. It makes it a little easier.
Yeah, it does.
Well, I will say, a lot of you could tell Kyle early in his career was into this. I mean, he has times where he gets going about an issue, and I'm with him, and then it slowly starts going over my head, and I go, "This guy should be doing this for sure."
Yeah, there's definitely times, Matt. Like we'll be at lunch, and we'll get into all three of us. We'll get into some type of like big sports talk, and then somehow it transitions to some type of political talk, and then I found myself rambling. I'm like, all right. Long story short, let me try to wind this down because I can tell I can start seeing. I'm like, all right, yeah, policy can be pretty boring at times,
but it's not to you, and that's what. No, it's the heart of this organization. I mean, it's talking those policies and all that, and we need to have somebody that has that passion, that knows everything about it, and everyone that could be involved. And I think you're well suited for that. So
yeah, thank you.
Well, okay, I've done this a lot since I've been at Farm Bureau, and so I think it would be helpful to hear you do it. The policy process, like we say long story short, and there's no such thing here sometimes, but we do randomly say, oh, we're always doing policy. Mm-hmm. But can you kind of go through like a calendar year for just the average listener? Because we could have regular members listening, or we could have some of our associate members. January 1, where are we at policy all the way through till our annual meeting in December, just to kind of give them an understanding maybe what you're doing and also what we're looking for from the grassroots membership.
Yeah, so we'll start at like January 1, and it's really a look back into December. What happened at annual meeting in December that really set what our policies are as well as our priority issues going into the next General Assembly session. So we've done that, all right? So we're back looking into December. Now it's January. The first the first Tuesday after the first Monday is when session kicks off. So sometimes it's January 2nd, sometimes it's like January 7th, but it's always on a Tuesday right after the first Monday of the month. And that's when we kick off, and I'm like looking back at our policy and our priority issues that we set at the annual meeting the year before. And then we work that January through either the end of March or the middle of April, depending if it's a short session, they finish March 30th. Long session, they finish April 15th. Those are constitutionally set dates. We have to be finished before those dates. And then we work those issues all the way through session based on our priorities from the annual meeting the year before. And then as soon as we finish, then we write a roughly 15-page kind of final report on all things that were important to us, and we get that sent out sometime in April. And then May 1st is when the deadline for counties to submit kind of their ideas for this next session. So that's happening while session's happening. You know, we're working the issues, but we're also asking counties kind of from March to May 1st, what are your ideas? So these aren't resolutions. These are just ideas. Like, I want to hear about ag labor. I want to hear about trade. I want to hear about education. They just give us ideas. And then kind of from May and into July, Renee, so we're working closely with your team on developing our policy development backgrounders. Those are those one-pagers that end up being 3 pages just because we want to provide all the information. That they're not biased in any way. It's just, here's the facts, and then letting our members take the facts and determining where our policy needs to be. So we do that at kind of May 1 into July 1. And then July 1 is when we say, now our policy development process is kicking off. So that was, let's implement policy from last year, let's get ideas, let's write fact sheets, and now it's, let's start getting these resolutions. So in July is when we travel to all 11 districts, and we kind of present these backgrounders to our membership. And then from July is also when we start our advisory committees, which your team, Renee, has many of those. And our advisory committees will meet July, August, September, and have to meet and submit their recommendations for resolutions before October 15th. So once October 15th hits, all 120 counties will have submitted resolutions. Over 24 advisory committees will have submitted their resolutions, along with Young Farmer, Gin Bridge, and the Women's Committee. And then from October 15th till November 1 is when we're putting together that multi-100-page resolutions document for our resolutions committee, which will then come in and meet for 3 days, that first Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday of November of the month. So that resolutions committee meets. We go through roughly 1,000, we little shy of 1,000 policy resolution recommendations, and we go through every single one of those. Every one of them, every page of our state policy book we'll go through. We get through that, and then we prepare our document for our annual meeting, which is always that 1st of December. So, and then at that annual meeting is when we will ultimately adopt our resolutions for the next year. And that happens at Friday afternoon of annual meeting. We do that, and then we just go into editing that book to be prepared to be printed for January, actually before Christmas, because we actually send all the legislators a policy book and a priority brochure between Christmas and the start of session. So we really only have like a 1-week period there to get that to them. So it really is year-round.
Yeah, I think we talk about it all the time, like, oh, we're doing this year-round, but I think it seemed helpful to me when I started, and so I've been sharing that a lot, is that full calendar, just to understand, like, you're going to get a touch point with us at the March district meetings, and we're going to give you an update of how session's going. And then in July, we're going to tell you, okay, this is what you guys were worried about to start the summer. Here's some info on it. And the coolest part of those fact sheets to me is the questions at the back. You can kind of explain a little bit of the goal of the questions on the back of those fact sheets.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we do set those fact sheets. They're just the facts. They're laying out the facts. They're not kind of leaning any which way. But then we do kind of pose some questions, and those questions that are posed at the end of the fact sheets are just to get people thinking, like, these are things we're hearing in Frankfort that we kind of need to know an answer on. So those questions don't necessarily come from us. Like, we write the fact sheets, we write the questions, but they're questions that I'm hearing in Frankfort that members are asking me. They're asking, like, a specific, I'll give us a specific question. One of the things we're working on is like rural agriculture economic development. This past General Assembly, they appropriated $5 million to the Department of Ag to have for next year for a economic development incentive to help bring in an ag-based processor potentially. So that was the first time they've ever done that. But now legislators are asking, like, we did that as kind of a seed project. Should we have some type of program like that to help incentivize getting ag-based businesses to Kentucky? Because we are doing a really good job at economic development in Kentucky. We've had multi-years with over $10 billion in investment. And we all know, Ford's investing heavy, companies like that. But how do we get ag-based processors, whether it be a beef packer or an ethanol facility or whatever it might be? How do we incentivize some of those businesses? Does ag need their own economic development piece? And, I don't know. They're getting it for 1 year. That $5 million is a 1 year appropriation, but that's kind of what we're throwing out there to our nearly 500,000 members in all 120 counties. Like, what do you all think? Do they? So that is something that we're, that's an example of a question we're throwing out there. And that's not just because I'm curious. That's because legislators are asking me, like, does this need to be a long-term thing? What's it need to look like? And then that's where I go out there and ask our membership, where does our, what do you all believe our policy needs to be? Mm-hmm. And then that's where the fun really starts.
Yeah.
That's when we get to go try to lobby for that policy.
Right. You're coming into July. What's some issues? What do you think what are you hearing out there that are some of the big issues that are going to probably be discussed over the next couple of months here?
Yeah, so the rural economic development is one. The biggest one is the Kentucky Farmland Transition Initiative. So we're talking a lot about not just how we transition farmland, but how we retain farmland. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely the number one issue that we're hearing about. So we're really laying out kind of the facts of, here are some things that we're seeing. We know we lost 500,000 acres. Mm-hmm. That was in the census. And then we're really kind of laying out some of the factors of why we're losing that land. And that's going to be the biggest issue. Is like, how can we help stem the tide of losing farmland to other things, whether it be eminent domain to a road, or whether it be to solar, or to foreign governments, mm-hmm. or to investors, whatever it might be to. How do we kind of help incentivize keeping that land in agriculture production? Mm-hmm. And I'll just, at the federal level, it's really a lot around tax reform. Mm-hmm. In 2017, we had the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that made a lot of tax reform provisions, and a lot of those are set to expire beginning really this year, 2025 and 2026. So we need to really identify, mm-hmm. like, what is most important to agriculture, what needs to be extended, what needs to be permanent law, and things of that nature. So from a federal side, it's really around tax reform. We still have a farm bill to do. That's, we're putting a lot of time and attention into that. It's not going to be done before the November election. I don't think it will be anyway. Mm-hmm. And there's just not many days left. There's not many legislative days left. They have an August recess, which is a month, and then they have an October recess, getting geared up for November election. So, you're basically out 2 whole months.
Yeah.
Subject to change slightly, but there's just not many legislative days left in the calendar at the federal level. So, but in terms of what we'll really be talking about this year, because we talked a lot about Farm Bill leading up to 2023, which was when it expired. And so this year it's really prioritizing kind of federal tax reform and what provisions need to be extended or put into permanent law.
Yeah, I think the issues are really helpful to read through those articles, but if you have a chance, and I don't know our exact air date on this, but it'll be in July. If you have a chance to attend that district meeting or mm-hmm. talk to those members from your county that are attending, either Kyle or Erica on the public affairs team, or myself, who I always say I'm third string for them, so I come in when we're double booked. But one of us will be there to give a very basic overview. So we're talking 5 to 10 minutes, but those articles dig so much deeper, and so I do think it's very helpful if you have a chance to come to one of those, and also they can get a hold of you as well. And talk through those issues. That's kind of what you're looking for, right? Is communication, discussion, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. We want to hear, we want to see as many faces as possible at those July district meetings. We want questions. We want to kind of have dialogue. But then obviously, for those that don't really want to speak out publicly, absolutely call or email. Renee, you obviously you say you're third string, but you're in there every single year now because we always are double booked.
I'm starting to think they're doing it on purpose.
Yeah. So anyway, email myself or Erica King or you or someone on your team. We'll definitely happy to answer any questions because, what we're trying to do this July is we want to lay out the facts on issues that we know are important to our membership because they told us they were. And then really from there, our membership does what they do, and that's develop the policy for this organization.
So where can we get your information? You have lots of different ways you communicate to membership. What are some of those neat ways that a member can get some of what you all do? Yeah,
so you can get my information off the website. Obviously, it's all on there, for my number and my email. But then we also have the series, Matt, that you and your team help with, the Farm to Frankfurt series that goes out. If you're not getting that, it's on YouTube. But we also do an email directly of that Farm to Frankfurt. And if you're not getting that, please sign up. You can reach out to myself or Katie Weatherholt. Both of our emails are available online. But we do send out, during session, we send out weekly email updates every Friday. And then outside of session, we do national affairs kind of as needed basis. But then we also are doing these monthly Farm to Frankfurts as well, highlighting kind of things that we're hearing and seeing this summer.
Yeah, and Farm to Frankfurt is a part of the Kentucky Farm Life podcast as well.
That's right. That's right.
But yeah,
thank you all for that.
So if the audio's ever not enough for you and you want to see the face behind these voices, you can go ahead and watch Kyle on YouTube.
Subscribe to YouTube today.
Yeah, what do they say? A face for radio and a voice for print or something.
Oh, man. Well, it's been good catching up. I hope the listeners, we're getting better at that, not viewers, listeners, are getting a chance to meet not only our members, but some of our staff. A lot of us do get to farm in our own counties, but we're also, I feel like they see us at meetings a lot. So I think it'll be cool for people to get to know you in this. So thanks for being here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Renee. Matt, thanks as well.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you, listeners, for joining. Be sure to subscribe to our larger podcast, Kentucky Farm Life, to catch our next episode. And we'll see you next time on Between the Rows.